Greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. So, after previously blogging Sophia and Elvenmore, now would be a good time to officially return to Wonderland again. And I gotta say, next to Oz, Agrabah, Neverland, Narnia, and the Land of Dragons, Wonderland is one of several fictional worlds that I sort of feel connected to, mainly due to the fact that, as I said before, I got to perform in Alice One Cat's Tale with my friends from Musical Theater Village during late spring of 2015, and it really was a lot of fun playing Dr. Dodo, the Duke of Cheshire, Crazy 8 Number 1, aka the Joker, and the Lobster. And again, I thought my friend, Princess Christy Fenton Royer, was a great director back then, and I really hope that she can direct another show in the future, just like her mother, Queen Denise. Anyway, if you may recall, while blogging on my series, I've so far blogged 2 Wonderland-related films, which were the 2 live-action films that Tim Burton were involved with, and I still like them for what they have. But aside from these 2 movies, I know a few other Wonderland-related things, like the Adventures in Wonderland TV series during the early 90s, an animated Alice special by Rankin Bass, which was part of the Festival of Family Classics, the 2-part 1985 TV special of Alice in Wonderland, Care Bears in Wonderland, Alice's Wonderland Bakery, the 1988 Alice in Wonderland by Burbank, the 1999 version by Hallmark, and the horrible animated ripoff of an Alice in Wonderland radio play that the cartoon hero was forced to sit through back in 2014. No thanks to Count CGI. And so far, we haven't seen him for almost 5 years now. But at least it was in exchange for time travel to save the universe from Hero's darker self and Diamanda Hagen. And I still pray that she doesn't know I exist. Otherwise, who knows what she'll do to me. But that's beside the point. For today's episode, because this year is still the Walt Disney Company's 100 Years of Wonder, I'm going to go back to the early 1950s to look at Walt Disney's classical animated version. So let's get started. Released on July 26, 1951, the movie is Alice in Wonderland. Now, on for the plot of the movie. When Alice, a restless young British girl, falls down a rabbit hole, she enters a magical world. There, she encounters an odd assortment of characters, including a white rabbit, a smoking caterpillar, a grinning Cheshire cat, and the goofy Mad Hatter. But when Alice ends up in the court of the tyrannical Queen of Hearts, she must stay on the ruler's good side or risk losing her head. So, what did I personally think of the movie? Well, to me, it wasn't technically one of my favorites during my childhood, but now that I'm older, I consider this film a cult classic. And to further explain why I think so, let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, Walt Disney was familiar with Lewis Carroll's Alice books, and he's read them back when he was a schoolboy. In 1933, after working on the Laugh-O-Gram series from 1924 to 1927, Walt Disney considered making a feature-length animated and live-action version of Alice. However, these plans were eventually scrapped in favor of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, mainly because Disney was put off by Paramount's 1933 live-action adaptation. However, Disney did not completely abandon the idea of adapting Alice, and in 1936, he made the classic Mickey Mouse cartoon Through the Mirror. In 1938, after the enormous success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney bought the film rights of Alice in Wonderland with Sir John Tenniel's illustrations, and officially registered the title with the Motion Picture Association of America. He then hired storyboard artist Al Perkins and art director David S. Hall to develop the story and concept art for the film. A story reel was completed in 1939, but Disney was unfortunately not pleased. He felt that Hall's drawings resembled Tenniel's drawings a bit too closely, making them too difficult to animate, and that the overall tone of Perkins' script was too grotesque and dark. Realizing the amount of work needed for Alice in Wonderland, and with the economic devastation of World War II and the production demands of Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi, Disney sadly shelved production on Alice in Wonderland shortly after the screening. In fall 1945, shortly after World War II ended, Disney revived Alice in Wonderland and hired British author Aldous Huxley to rewrite the script. However, after reading it, Walt felt that Huxley's version was too literal an adaptation of Carroll's book. Background artist Mary Blair submitted some concept drawings for Alice in Wonderland. Blair's paintings moved away from Tenniel's detailed illustrations by taking a more modernist stance using bold and unreal colors. Walt loved Blair's designs, and the script was rewritten to focus on comedy, music, and the whimsical side of Carroll's books. Around this time, Disney considered making a live-action and animated version of Alice in Wonderland, similar to his short Alice comedies. However, Disney soon realized that he could only do justice to the book by making an all-animated feature, and in 1946, work began on Alice in Wonderland. With the film scheduled for release in 1950, animation crews on Alice in Wonderland and Cinderella effectively competed against each other to see which film would finish first. By early 1948, Cinderella had progressed further than Alice in Wonderland. During its initial theatrical release in 1951, Alice in Wonderland was weirdly shown as a double feature with the true life adventures documentary short Nature's Half Acre, and it was sadly considered a disappointment. But thankfully, when it was re-released in 1974, the film proved to be much more successful. As for the animation, well, in my opinion, this is classical Walt Disney hand-drawn animation, and I think Mary Blair did a really wonderful job with the drawings. Fun fact regarding Mary Blair, not only was she a legendary Disney animator from 1942 to 1965, but she was also responsible for designing It's a Small World for the Disney parks. Plus, she also illustrated several Little Golden Books, and she designed Christmas and Easter sets for Radio City Music Hall. And she would also go on to make sets of Walt Disney note cards for Hallmark. Anyway, I think this version of Wonderland is both magical and eccentric, and I like the parts where it captures a different perspective whenever Alice becomes small or tall. Plus, I think it has a lot more to offer than in the Kingdom Hearts games. Also, over the years, not only did I read the original Lewis Carroll book and seen several adaptations on stage and on TV, but I've also learned that several other things from the books, such as the Jabberwocky, Mock Turtle, the Griffin, and others, were discarded for pacing reasons. Now, since this is a Disney classic from the 1950s, that also makes it a musical. And let me tell you, this has the most songs out of any animated film from the Walt Disney Animation Library. However, for now, I only want to talk about 4 of these. First is In a World of My Own, sung by Alice. To me, this song is your typical dream and desire song, where Alice is longing to live in her own world where there be nonsense all around. And to me, it kind of feels pretty similar to Dorothy Gale's Over the Rainbow song from The Wizard of Oz. Next is The Caucus Race, sung by Dodo, and a group of beach creatures running around trying to get dry. In my eyes, This song may be pretty silly and pointless, but nowadays it kind of reminds me of a song that I sang when I played Dr. Dodo, which is also called Caucus Race. Next is Very Good Advice, also sung by Alice, who becomes hopelessly lost in Wonderland, which, by this time, Alice has realized a world where everything is nonsense isn't as good as she thought. And she tearfully fears that she will never return home again. To me, this has got to be the most tear-jerking song in the entire movie, and every time I listen to it, it makes me want to shed a tear. Plus, I thought it was very sweet when the Tolji wood creatures listen and sympathize with her before they fade away. Also, fun fact, this is the only song from the 1951 version to be on the soundtrack to Tim Burton's 2010 adaptation, and it's covered by Roger Smith. The last song to talk about is Painting the Roses Red, sung by the Queen of Hearts card soldiers, whom are voiced by the Mellow Men, when Alice first enters the Rose Garden. To me, this is a really catchy tune, and I like the part where Alice helps them. During the song, the cards explain that they are painting the roses red because the Queen likes them that way, and that they planted white ones by mistake. Unfortunately for them, the Queen of Hearts catches on to their little ruse during a single poorly painted rose, and has them beheaded anyway. Yikes. And now, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. Our main character, Alice, is voiced by Disney legend Catherine Beaumont, who would later play Wendy in Disney's 1953 animated Peter Pan film, and she voiced Kyrie's grandmother in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Alice is a young British girl who uses her surreal imagination to escape her mundane life. Her curiosity and yearn for something new leads her to a mysterious realm known as Wonderland. As she traverses through the wacky world, Alice finds herself appreciating the normality that she once rejected. To me, not only is Alice curious, but she's also very adventurous, idealistic, intelligent, polite, and honest. Also, in the Kingdom Hearts game series, Alice is one of the 7 pure hearts needed to open the door to darkness, which is weird since she's not technically royal compared to the other 6. And when Sora tries to prove her innocence, Alice gets abducted by the Heartless and gets taken to the Disney villain's base in Hollow Bastion. Also to note, Alice has received a spot on my top 11 other Disney princesses. Next is the White Rabbit, voiced by Bill Thompson, who you may remember as the voice of Droopy, Professor Owl, Ranger Woodlore, Mr. Smee, along with King Hubert from Disney's Sleeping Beauty, Jock from Lady and the Tramp, Uncle Waldo from the Aristocats, and he was the first voice of Scrooge McDuck. Plus, he also voices Dodo in this movie. But anyway, the White Rabbit is a character who serves as the Queen of Hearts' Royal Herald, an obligation to which he is often late for. In the movie, Alice follows the White Rabbit down the rabbit hole into Wonderland, as she was curious to why he was in such a rush. Now, I find the White Rabbit to be a bit of a nervous and disorganized character, but at the same time, he is very loyal to the Queen of Hearts. Also, one of the most memorable scenes involving him is when he confuses Alice for his maid, Marianne, and he orders her to find his gloves inside. While looking for them, Alice grows huge after biting into a sweet, which causes the White Rabbit to get help from Dodo, who plans to burn down his house to get Alice out, much to the rabbit's despair. Next up is the Doorknob, voiced by Joseph Kearns. This character lies at the very end of the rabbit hole. Due to his small size, the only way to enter him is to drink from a very special bottle of multi-flavored liquid that will shrink the drinker in size. The drinker also needs to use the key to unlock the doorknob, which is located on the same table as the liquid. To me, despite the fact that he does not exist in the original Lewis Carroll story, the doorknob is a generally nice character, but he does have a tendency to joke around during serious situations. But he is overall well-meaning, while in Kingdom Hearts, he isn't very helpful and only cares about getting some sleep. Also to note, Wonderland's keyhole is in the doorknob's mouth. Plus, the surprising thing regarding him is that during the climax, while Alice is trying to escape from the Queen of Hearts, he informs her that she is already outside and was just asleep. Next on our list is Tweedledee and Tweedledum, both voiced by J. Pat O'Malley, who voiced Cyril Proudbottom in Wind in the Willows, Jasper and the Colonel in 101 Dalmatians, Happy and Buzzy in The Jungle Book, and Otto from Robin Hood. The Tweedles are identical twins who take particular delight in reciting poems and songs like the story of the Walrus and the Carpenter. Plus, they're playful and jolly, which can make them seem a little annoying. They also enjoy company and will always insist in a little game. Plus, they also have the ability to multiply, and when they move, the sound of a honking noise can be heard. Our next set of characters are the Flowers. Now, I kind of find these characters to be a bit insignificant to the film's overall plot. However, the ones who stick out the most to me is the Rose, the Snooty Iris, the Daisy, and the Young Pansies. Anyway, when Alice meets and befriends them, the Flowers welcome her by singing Golden Afternoon, which just happens to be one of my favorite songs in this whole movie. But unfortunately, afterwards, when Alice says that she isn't a flower, they become disgusted and they determine that she is a weed, and they chase her out of their garden violently, and they soak her with water, which in my opinion makes these flowers not as friendly as they are in the books or in Kingdom Hearts. Moving on, we also have the Caterpillar, voiced by Richard Hayden, whom was in The Sound of Music and Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. Now, like his live-action counterpart, the Caterpillar is known for smoking a hookah from which colorful smoke rises, forming letters, words, and even images that he refers to while speaking, which to me makes him a bit eccentric. And it kind of makes me glad that I don't smoke and that the Walt Disney Company has banned all smoking activity in their movies nowadays ever since 2015. Anyway, the Caterpillar also has a passion for recitation and grammar, and unlike most of the other residents of Wonderland, he appears more calm and collected, and he was one of the few willing to give Alice useful advice. He also has a rather short temper, which can easily be set off if his height is mocked or if someone fails to understand his hints. Another character to talk about is the Cheshire Cat, voiced by Sterling Holloway, whom was a grown-up flower in Bambi, Mr. Stork from Dumbo, Kaa from The Jungle Book, Roquefort from the Aristocats, and he was the first voice of Winnie the Pooh. The Cheshire Cat is a mysterious pink and purple striped cat with a permanent grin. Mischievous and unpredictable in nature, the Cheshire Cat acts as a guide for Alice during her adventures in Wonderland, but also takes pleasure in causing her trouble. To me, the Cheshire Cat is very mysterious, mainly due to him having the ability to disappear at will and reshape his body. Like all members of Wonderland, he is mad, but unlike the others, he admits it with pride. All of Wonderland's inhabitants appear to hold fear over him, even the Queen of Hearts, most likely due to the fact that he is the maddest and craziest of them all. Also, in the Kingdom Hearts games, the Cheshire Cat also helps visiting characters like Sora or Roxas, showing his neutral alignment. The fact that he talks in riddles and knows almost everything and anything in Wonderland proves that he is quite smart. And now we come to the craziest and maddest trio in all of Wonderland. The Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse, voiced by Ed Wynn, Jerry Colonna, and Jimmy McDonald. Hatter is a short, hyperactive man, Hare is a large, wacky, mallet-carrying hare, and Dormouse is a drowsy mouse, but whenever someone mentions a cat, he goes on a crazy frenzy and can only be calmed down by jam being applied to his nose. During this movie, Alice first meets the trio at a mad tea party where they celebrate their unbirthday, which is every day that is not a birthday, and it's also another one of my favorite songs in this entire movie. And in my opinion, the part where they repair White Rabbit's pocket watch with butter, tea, 2 spoons, jam, and a lemon was the most insane and hilarious scene ever. Later in the film, Hatter, Hare, and Dormouse appear at the trial where they are called as witnesses to prove Alice's guilt of exposing the Queen of Hearts' heart print bloomers. Also, in Kingdom Hearts, while Hare and Hatter don't physically appear, with the exception of the mobile games, they do appear in a portrait in the Tea Party garden area. Finally, we come to the tyrannical, deranged, and hot-headed ruler of Wonderland, the Queen of Hearts, voiced by Verna Felton. Best known as the fairy godmother from Cinderella, Aunt Sarah in Lady and the Tramp, Flora in Sleeping Beauty, and Winifred from The Jungle Book. The Queen of Hearts is known for her unruly and extremely fragile temper. Those who upset the Queen in any way are immediately subjected to a gruesome death by beheading. The most frequent victims of this cruel practice are none other than her own card guards. To me, the Queen of Hearts has got to be the most dangerous resident of Wonderland, and she is very egotistical, as she likes to hear the words, "Yes, Your Majesty," and insists that all ways are her ways. She's also shown to be a rather childish character, even in the face of Alice, as she is incredibly impatient, irrationally sensitive, and prone to temper tantrums. Plus, she's considered as a champion when it comes to playing croquet. Also to note, even though I was in her service as one of her crazy eights, I am scared of this tyrannical monarch due to the fact that, as Dr. Dodo, I was arrested for leading a rebellion and was sentenced to 20 years of solitaire. And if it wasn't for Alice, I would have had my head chopped off. And now on to my final words. Overall, Disney's Alice in Wonderland, while not technically one of my childhood favorites, is a classical animated film from Walt Disney's time period. The animation is very bold, colorful, and whimsical. The story is bizarre and comedic. The songs are classical, while also retaining some of Lewis Carroll's imaginative poems. The main character, Alice, is a relatable Disney heroine, and the characters she meets can range from strange to helpful to rude to over the top. But still, this is one of several animated classics from the House of Mouse that you should definitely check out if you want to introduce your children to the Lewis Carroll stories. And I guarantee you that this film will make you laugh, smile, even cry. As for my rating, I'll give it a 91% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me next time where I pay tribute to a highly intelligent superhero who, during this year, sacrificed himself to defeat Thanos. Mustang Power.